with a neutral stimulus. So we further ahead to explain that natural stimulus is a stimulus that on its own elicits a response or a behavior. So according to Pavlov and the experiments he conducted, when Pavlov presented meat to his dog, at the sight of the meat, the dog gave a certain response. That is the salivation. The dog produced saliva. So the meat is the stimulus, and the saliva the dog produces is the response. Okay. So based on that, Pavlov clearly said that every stimulus elicits a response. But then Pavlov went ahead to say that he can also make the dog produce saliva, not only at the site of a meat, but also at the site of any other stimulus. For example, the ringing of a bell. So in this example, the dog produced saliva at the sound of the bell. Pavlov always gave the dog, presented meat to the dog, and at the same time rang the bell. So at this point, you can see that two stimuli are being presented, the meat and the sound of the bell. Naturally, the dog produces saliva when he sees the meat, but unconsciously, the sound of the bell too is being attached to the site of the meat. So subsequent presentation of the meat alongside the sound of the bell, it will get to a point that the sound of the bell alone, without giving the dog meat, will make the dog salivate. So we said that at that point, the dog has become conditioned because now the dog produces saliva even when it hears the sound of the bell. Okay, so before the sound of the bell made the dog salivate, the sound of the bell was a neutral stimulus. Neutral stimulus because initially on its own, it did not cause the dog to produce saliva. That is the response. So we said that in applying it in real life, there are certain situations where we behave in that similar manner like the dog. So I shared an example that for classical conditioning, we naturally blink our eyes if anything comes closer to our eyes. So if I bring my hand closer to your eye, my hand is the stimulus. You blinking is the response. So naturally, anything that gets closer to your hand, you blink your eye. But what if I want to make you blink your eye when you hear me whistle? It is almost impossible for somebody to whistle and you blink your eye. And so I can condition you using classical conditioning. So in that case, as I bring my hand closer to your eye, I will whistle at the same time. So these two stimuli will together be presented continuously for a number of times so that at a certain point, so we move on to look at another behavioral condition.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. You got the review of the classical conditioning I presented.
Please.
Okay. So a quick review of the operant conditioning by Skinner. We because the behavior of the child is as a result of an influence in the environment. Please mute your microphones when you join us. Penina, please mute your microphone. Okay, so Penina also told us that in for operant conditioning, he rather rewarded behaviors that were desirable when the organism performed a certain behavior that was desirable. He rewarded the organism with that, so that that desirable behavior is likely to occur. So we said that we can also apply it in the classroom and in an everyday life. When there are certain behaviors we want children to exhibit, the moment they exhibit those behaviors, we reward them. The reward we said could be in a praise or in anything that the child likes. So that reward ensures that that desirable behavior the child put forth will always be exhibited. And we mentioned that that reward we give is called a reinforcer because it strengthens the occurrence of that desirable behavior. Class, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Yes,
So,
madam.
thank you. Then I think we were also able to discuss Bandura's social learning theory, which we mostly termed it observational learning. Here, Bandura performed a simple experiment where he allowed some children to watch a model. A model is another person play with a doll that was called a bobo doll. And there are situations or at a point where the model abused the doll. And when the model abused the model was punished. When the children had an opportunity to also play with the doll and they abused the doll, since they saw that the model was punished earlier, they did not abuse the doll. And so social learning theory is telling us that behaviors can change, our behaviors can develop when what happens to people who look at certain behaviors, simply we learn from people. So we say that in school and in homes, the children they are learning what we are doing. So we should be good role models. And so if you want your students to report to school on time, then you, the teacher, be a good example. Be in school on time and be observe and imitate. So that ended the section of behaviorist theory. Then pardon me, we started session 2 to look at psychoanalytic theories. We said that psychoanalytic theories are the theories that are going to analyze the mind. The mind is the psychopath here. So now we've moved from just learning or the influence of the environment causing our behavior to develop, but rather now we want to see and understand how our minds make us behave in certain ways. If we're able to understand the mindset, then we'll be able to know how the behavior of somebody or a child in this case develops. So we looked at the first psychoanalytic theory and we looked at Freud's stages of personality development, where we said that according to Freud, personality is in three components: the id, I-D, the ego, ego, and the superego. So according to Freud, said that personality develops when these three components have an influence, and so the person behaves in a certain manner. Remember, behavior is part of a person's personality. Your behavior is part of your personality. Okay. So according to Freud, the 8 components of personality is the most basic and the most primitive part. Primitive because it's not nurtured, it has not been trained, and so it puts forth its needs in the raw state. So it's primitive. That means that for the id, our wishes, our dreams, our needs, our urges, that is what the id is about. And so if a child puts up a behavior that is basically to satisfy the need or the urge or a desire at that particular time, the behavior of the child is as a result of the id component of the personality. So a child who wants to play with a certain doll and the mother is preventing her from playing with a certain doll, she puts up a tantrum, she cries. That cry is a behavior coming from the eight parts of the personality, wanting to satisfy the desire to play with that doll. Okay. Then we move to the ego part of the personality, which we said the ego part fulfills the pleasures of the id in an acceptable manner. In an acceptable manner. Of course, not all the times that our desires and our wishes can be gratified or satisfied in that moment of time. And so, for example, if a child wants to play with the doll and the mother prevents the child from playing with the doll, the id part of the personality makes the child puts up a tantrum. So the child cries and wails and throws herself on the floor and all that. But if if the ego part of the child is operating, this child now is not going to throw up a tantrum, but rather will be able to play with the doll at a certain point in time. Maybe at that point in time that the child is demanding to play with the doll, it could be night time and it's time to go to bed. So a child whose ego has developed would understand that at night it is unlikely and it's not acceptable to play with a doll until tomorrow morning. And so that's accomplishing the desire of the id and delaying satisfaction, delaying the gratification of the id at an appropriate time. That is the responsibility of the ego. And so people whose behavior are being checked by the ego, they delay their gratification until it is an acceptable time. I think I also gave an example of a man urinating on a wall where the sign has been boldly written, do not urinate on the wall. But if this person goes ahead and urinates there, the person is that behavior straight away is satisfying the id component. But if this person realizes that urinating at the wall at this moment in time is not acceptable and delays the urinating until he sees a place that is acceptable and goes ahead to urinate, then that behavior is as a result of the ego component. I think we discussed Freud's personality and ended with the super ego. He said that super ego is the last part of the personality to develop. And so as children develop, the super ego is the last component to develop. And remember, I've said that your behavior is part of your personality. What is the super ego? It is the moral branch of the personality. Therefore, the pleasures of the id are scrutinized to ensure that they are morally acceptable. So the behavior the child is going to put forth at the super ego level is being scrutinized to ensure that it is morally acceptable. I think I gave the example of a child sitting at an examination and couldn't answer a particular question. If it is the super ego, if the child has developed that super ego component of the personality at that age, he or she will not try to satisfy the id by trying to cheat, but rather she realizes that cheating is not morally acceptable. And so forgoes the attempt to cheat and leave that question unanswered. So super ego, when our mind, our personality when we put up behavior that is coming from that super ego part of our personality, we can see that our behaviors are morally acceptable. And so as children develop, sorry, as children develop, certain behaviors they put forth comes from these components of their personality. It will come from the id, it will come from the ego, it will come from the super ego. But so far, Freud says that the super ego component of the personality makes children put up behavior or develop behaviors that are morally acceptable. Class, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I believe for the sake of those who couldn't join us last week, I have been able to bring you up to speed to where we ended last week. And I trust that you would go back and revise the manual so that you get deeper understanding. Okay. So although we are far behind time, we will try to do with what we have next. So still on the psychoanalytic theories, we look at another personality development theory coming from Freud. This time, Freud is saying that the personality is going to develop in stages. So please mute your microphone so that you don't break our ears. Don't give us terrible feedbacks. Thank you. So the next psychoanalytic theory we are looking at is Freud's stages of personality development. Now, can you share your screen for us? Juliet?
Yes, please. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So, Juliet, your screen, have you shared? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Please, I hope it's showing.
Yes,
Can
it's
everybody
beginning to
see?
load because of the network.
Oh, okay.
Do you see Juliet's screen? You can give us a thumbs up, a reaction so that we know you can see the screen. She's sharing with us.
No.
Okay. So we can move on, right?
Madam, please, I can't see the screen.
Please, I can't see the screen. I can't see it. It's dark.
Juliet, please your screen.
Yes.
Try again for us. Your screen is dark.
Is it clear?
No,
No.
Juliet, are you there?
No.
No, we still can see. It's dark.
Is it still dark?
Yes,
Yes,
it
please.
is.
Yes. It's okay.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, madam.
So can another person try to also share?
Okay, then please, then someone should please try for us.
Okay, so Juliet, you can stop sharing your screen. Okay, thank you.
Hello, madam.
Judith, are you trying to share?
No, please, but I think we should all open to our models, then we should follow. That's my suggestion. No one can share the screen, so I was thinking we should all open to our models.
Yes,
Models are
doing the same thing. I'm looking through my model.
yes, because if you say I'm waiting for someone to share the screen, then it will waste time. So I think we should all
Let's
open to
start
our
from
models.
order. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, madam.
Let's start from order, please. Okay. So the screen that Juliet was trying to share is not from the course manual. It's the main point that we've used to make a PowerPoint. So it makes us go through the course manual in the time that we have. So if for today the internet is giving me challenges and sharing my screen, it's not going to be a continuous and a smooth experience. That's why I asked one of you to share the screen. In any case, if we cannot share the screen for today, we can still go ahead. The PowerPoint presentation will be placed on a WhatsApp group page, and you still have your course manual. You can follow us. Okay, so let's move ahead. Please mute your microphones. Thank you. So we are moving on to 4 stages of personality development, which is also a psychoanalytic field. I believe you can hear me. Hello, can you hear
Yes,
me?
please.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you. So let's look at what Freud is saying. Now, this personality development is in stages. It means that we move from one level, one stage to the next higher level. Now, Freud believes that the human personality develops through stages. So there is the first stage, then you move to the next stage, and then the following stage, and so on. Now, what we have to bear in mind is that each stage has a need, NEED. Each stage of the personality development has a need that the person must satisfy. And so, if that need at that particular stage is not adequately satisfied, then the person becomes fixated at that stage. In simple terms, Freud is saying that our personality, we develop our personality by passing through some stages. Now, each stage presents a certain task, a certain need that the person at a particular stage must be able to satisfy or accomplish. If that person doesn't satisfy that need, then that person is fixed. FIX. That person is fixed at that stage. And so the person will have to either later resolve that fixation because that need at that particular stage was not satisfied. We will get more understanding as we move on. So in this case, a child whose personality is developing will also pass through certain stages, as Freud is saying. And at each stage, there is a need for the child to satisfy. If the child does not satisfy that need for the stage that he or she is in, he becomes fixated. So in fixation, it simply means that the need at that developmental stage was not satisfied. Now, that satisfaction means that the need could be under satisfied or was overly satisfied. So physician is looking at the need in two ways. Either the need was under satisfied or was overly satisfied. So Freud was of the opinion that our personality develops well when needs are adequately satisfied, and hence we are not fixated at any stage. So let's move to discuss the stages and you understand what we mean. So according to Freud, our personality develops through the following stages. The first stage is the oral stage, ORAL, oral stage. The second stage is the anal stage, ANAL, anal stage. Class, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
please.
Yes, please.
Yes, Auntie.
So the first stage is the oral stage, second stage is the anal stage, the third stage is the phallic stage, PHALLIC. The fourth stage is the latency stage, LATENCY. Then the last stage is the genital stage, GENITAL. So according to Freud, children develop their personality, or people in general develop their personality through these stages, 5 stages: the oral stage, the anal stage, the phallic stage, the latency stage, and the genital stages. So you move progressively from the first to the last. So let's pick each stage and see what's happening there. Remember, each stage has a need that should be satisfied. If that need is unsatisfied, the person is fixated at that stage. If that need at the same time is overly satisfied, still the person is fixated at that stage. So let's look at the first stage, the oral stage. Now, the oral stage begins from birth to about 1 year. So, right from when a person is born to about a year, the personality of that person is at the oral stage. Now, at this oral stage, what is the need? The need at the oral stage is pleasure derived, is pleasure driven around the mouth, chewing, sucking, and biting. Remember, the stage is oral, ORAL. So any pleasurable thing that has to do with the mouth, that passes through the mouth. So chewing passes through the mouth, sucking passes through the mouth, biting passes through the mouth. So when children are young, from birth to 1 year, we could see that anything they pick or lay their hands on, straight away, they take their hands to the mouth. So we see that they put their hands in their mouth. Everything that should give them pleasure is centered around the mouth. That is why the stage is oral stage. So the need for this stage is pleasure that is derived around the mouth. So fixation at this stage is therefore going to be seen in people who overindulge or did not have enough pleasures derived from the mouth. For example, a child who eats a lot, or after the child has passed through the oral stage, or even during the oral stage, this child had the opportunity to get more pleasures of food. This child derives that derives that pleasure of having food. And we know that food passes through the mouth. And so the child then develops a habit liking to eat. So if it is too much, then this child at a point becomes fixated, meaning that even when he grows up, would overindulge in anything that gives pleasure by virtue of it being centered around the mouth. So such a child would be talkative, would like to talk. Such a child may be biting the hand, even when he or she has passed the oral stage. Such a child may even be sucking the tongue. Such a child may bite the nails or pick the teeth or may drink excessively. What the oral stage is saying is that the pleasure at that stage is derived when pleasure around the mouth is satisfied. But the warning is that if the pleasure around the mouth is overly satisfied or undersatisfied, the person becomes fixated. So when that person is fixated at the oral stage, what are some of the behaviors we see in that child? The behaviors we will see in that child is that such a child will be a talkative. He likes to talk. This excessive talking is a sign of fixation that during the oral stage, the child probably had the opportunity to have over gratification or under gratification. Class, am I making a point with you? So,
Yes, ma'am.
an adult who has grown and drinks, according to Freud, that behavior is part of the person's personality. And he's explaining it to the point that when that person was young, from just 1 year, and was at that oral stage, there was a possibility that that person had over satisfaction or was under or had under satisfaction from pleasures surrounding the mouth. So the basic takeaway or the basic point from the oral stage is that the need at the oral stage is to satisfy the pleasures derived around the mouth. If these pleasures were too much or they were not met adequately, the person becomes fixated. And the signs of it is any behavior that is giving pleasure from the mouth, excessive talking, excessive drinking, excessive eating, hand biting, thumb smacking. They are all behaviors indicating indicating fixation at the oral stage. Now, when the child moves from the oral stage and does not show any sign of fixation, it means that that child has become well adapted. That need to satisfy pleasures of the mouth was well developed. So the child is not fixated. Such a child develops and moves from the oral stage to the next stage, anal stage. Now remember, I'm not saying that if you are fixated at one stage, you cannot move on to the next stage. No, you can move on to the next stage, but the signs or the behaviors of fixation at the previous stage will still be seen. So even if a child moves to the second stage and was fixated at the first stage, the excessive talking is a sign for us to know that this person was fixated at the first oral stage. Okay. Now, the second stage is the anal stage. When does it begin? It starts from 1 year to 3 years. Now, the need at this stage is that the pleasure is derived around the anus. Anal, A-N-A-L, that is an anus. So it means that when a child is from 1 year to 3 years, they derive satisfaction or pleasure when they are able to eliminate their eliminative functions. They are able to have their bowels cleared of whatever feces or the digestive remnants in their body. And as they do that, they feel satisfied. So the need at the anal stage is pleasure involving the anus. Now, we bear witness that it is around this stage, 1 to 3 years, that is when children are being trained on toileting. We train the child on how to use the toilet. I don't know these days because of the overuse of diapers. Children these days are not trained on toileting. Previous years back, when the child immediately wakes up in the morning, he or she is put on a chamber pot. And the child knows that from the time that he wakes up to a certain period of time, he is supposed to sit on this chamber pot and relieve himself of the need to move those digestive feelings out. As the child does that, it is the need to satisfy the urge to move out these things from the anus. That is the stage called the anal stage. Now, as the child does that, it is helping the child to know that when things are held up in, it may have a consequence. So, for example, if this child in the morning is not toilet trained and it is time to leave the home, it means that this child must move out with holding up, quote unquote, these feces. But if a child at home who every time has been trained, toilet trained, put on the chamber pot and eases himself freely every time, this child grows up to know that like things are done meticulously. You just don't do things anyhow. The pleasures from the anal helps such a child to know that there are things or there are events or moments in life where we need to give off certain things. And that pleasure of the anus is the need at that stage. So, what Freud eventually is saying that toilet training can be orderly, where the child is allowed to eliminate at certain times, or toilet training can be liberal, where the child eliminates at will. So if you are toilet training the child and you let the child know that from 6 a.m. to about 6:30 a.m., that is when you sit on the chamber pot and do your business, the child is knowing that toilet training is orderly. Things are done orderly. If such a child is trained that way in terms of toilet training, he grows up to be orderly. But if a child at that stage is not toilet trained and he does it anytime he or she pleases, there is no time limited to use the toilet, but he does it anyhow. It means that such a child will grow up doing things at will. And that was the point I was raising, that because maybe these days with the overuse of the diaper, once the child is in the diaper, he or she feels free to do it anytime. I don't know if I am making a point with you. So orderly toilet training results in a personality trait that is ordered. But toilet training that is liberal will make the child too, should I say, generous, because he does things anyhow. He does things at will. Another point is that a child whose toilet training was orderly may tend to hold things in because he knows that you are supposed to do things at certain times from 6 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. You do those things. Though it is orderly, this child may also keep things in. So Freud said that such children will grow up to be stingy. That is Freud's opinion. You can differ. But he says that if a toilet training goes too orderly, it is too ordered from 6 to 6:30 a.m. That is when you do your business. After that, you cannot do it any time again. Though it makes the child ordered, it also, in a way, let the child knows that things are done at certain times, and when moments pass, that is it. He is not freely giving out things. If he tells you that he's going to give you something at a certain point in time, that is when he will do it. when it passed that time, he's not going to do it. So this anal toilet training stage, the anal stage that comes with toilet training, has an effect eventually on the person's personality. On the opposite side, Freud also said that when toilet training is liberal, that is, the child does it anytime he wants, that child is going to be not orderly because he does it anyhow, anytime. So it may have an effect on the personality. You have a messy personality. He will be too generous because he gives things anyhow. During his training time, he was doing his business anytime, any day. And so he gives things out anytime, any day. He just does things too generous. So all these things we are discussing, remember, it eventually has an effect on the personality of the person. But we can understand the personality of the person if we analyze the stage where the person was physated. So at the anal stage, a physated person at the anal stage could be stingy. If he's stingy, it means that his business at that time, going to the loo and doing his business at that time, was an orderly manner. It was within a certain time frame. But a person who has grown up and is too generous, according to Freud, we can analyze that behavior by going back to the anal stage to find out how his toilet training was. Class, am I the point? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
please, madam.
Okay. So that is the anal stage of Freud. This is Freud's opinion. According to him, our personality develops in these stages. And we can understand the personality of people if we analyze. That is why it's a psychoanalytic theory. If we analyze their behavior from a certain stage of their personality development. Now, moving on from the anal stage, we enter into the phallic stage. The phallic stage, that's the third stage. Yes, Ella, you've raised your hand.
Okay. Good afternoon, madam. Hello, madam.
Good afternoon.
Okay. So I want to ask this. So does it mean that according to Freud's opinion, it means that there is no such personality, perfect personality? Hello?
Yes, I heard you. I believe your mate
Hello,
also
madam.
heard you. Able to help Ella
Okay.
address this issue? Okay. Can someone help Ella's issue?
Okay, ma'am.
She's asking if, according to Freud, there is no perfect personality. What's your opinion on that? A contribution?
Okay, madam.
Okay,
Maybe
so
let me
you can put
elaborate on
your
it. Maybe they will get it.
opinion in the messages. Okay.
Okay, because we said that an individual.
Ella, we can't hear you. Hello, Ella. Okay, so
Okay.
class, can you hear me? Okay, so Eunice is responding to your message, your question. And if you go to the messages box, Eunice is saying that I think there is no perfect personality, but personality can be nurtured. Now, if I understand your question, Freud is saying that A personality that is well developed is that personality that is not fixated at any stage. Ella, have I answered you?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So for Freud, you pass through the oral stage and your satisfaction of pleasures of the mouth, you are not fixated. You pass through the anal stage and your satisfaction of pleasures around the anus,
Okay.
you are not fixated. You move to the next stage and you are not fixated. You have a well-formed personality. That means you are not going to put up certain behaviors that are indicators of you having been fixed at a particular stage. Then, according to Freud, you have a good personality. Are you okay?
Okay. Okay. Yes, please. Thank you very
All
much.
right. Sure. So the third stage, according to Freud, is the phallic stage, beginning from 3 to 6 years. For him, Freud is saying that the pleasure this time is around the genitals, phallic. It's around the genitals. That means the child derives pleasure towards the genitals. If you remember, back in the days, I don't know if children still do it these days. Children at this stage, 3 to 6 years, that is when they play, they say they are acting the role of a mother, another is acting the role of a father, and they begin to play around that. That is just play. Now, these genitals again also can be looked at it from another point. Here, Freud is saying that when children are at this stage, the pleasurable need focuses on the genitals and is directed towards intense desire or love for the parent. So the love, phallic here is coming from a word that can be used as love. So the pleasurable need focuses on the genitals and it is directed towards intense desire or love for the parent. Now, it will be for the parent of the opposite sex as that of the child. And so if the child is a girl, the child develops phallic love, develops desire for the father. If it's a boy, the boy develops love, desire, and attention for the mother. So at this stage, the child is attracted to the parent of the opposite sex. And if you have a girl child, you see that at this stage, it is all about daddy. When she sees daddy, it's as if the whole world is present. The boy at that stage, from 3 to 6 years, is drawn towards mommy, attached to mommy. Everywhere mommy goes, he is there. It is the phallic stage. The closeness and the bond to the parent of the opposite side is a way for the child to relieve that need should be satisfied so that the child does not become fixated. So if the girl child is drawn to the father, it is a need at that age that she must satisfy. If the boy child is drawn to the mom, it is a need at that stage, 3 to 6 years, the phallic stage, that must be satisfied. If that need, that desire, and that attention, that closeness to that parent of the opposite side is not satisfied, the child becomes fixated. So moving on. During this stage, the girl child tends to have desire for the father and the boy desires the mother. During this stage, the child develops what Freud called the Electra complex. The Electra complex. The Electra complex is Freud's way of saying that the girl child is so drawn to the father. Naturally, the girl should have been drawn to the mother because they are of the same sex. And the boy should have been drawn to the father because they are of the same sex. But at the phallic stage, the child is drawn or have attraction to the parent of the opposite side. Now, for the girl, that attraction, that strong desire to be closer to the father, Freud termed it the Electra complex because when you read your course manual, you find out that Freud is saying that the girl, in a way, dislikes the mother or hates the mother for not giving her the penis. That is the genital part we brought in, the penis that the daddy has. And so if she can somehow get closer to the daddy, she can satisfy that need of not having the penis. Hello. So it is more of, if you can't beat them, join them. So the electoral complex is the girl's child way of getting attracted or closer to the father simply because of penis envy, simply because she feels that when she looks at herself and she looks at her mother, they seem not to have what the daddy has. And so if she can get closer to the daddy, then in a way, it will be a way to satisfy that need of not her having the penis. So the electoral complex is a penis envy. Now, if this child, after passing through the phallic stage, if this girl child, after passing through the phallic stage, has not successfully been able to resolve this need of close attachment to the father and still always, after passing through the phallic stage, is still attached to the daddy, that means there is overfixation. Overfixation here could be that the girl child did not get that desire of closeness to the father. So that desire was under gratified, under satisfied, or it could have been overly satisfied. She had too much time and too much freedom moving around with the daddy. So the fixation here could be under or over satisfaction of a particular need. So a girl who is well satisfied at the phallic stage moves out of this stage after 6 years, and it was as if she was not a child who used to cling to the daddy. Class, am I making sense? But a child who got fixated at the phallic stage, still after moving through that stage, still has that attraction for the daddy, and it will show later on in their personality. She may still want to hang around people who have traits that she saw in the daddy, may date people who had traits she saw in the daddy, may have romantic affairs with people who are much older, just like the daddy. So electoral complex and the effect of it can be seen in a girl who has developed past the phallic stage and still put up certain signs. Now, these signs, according to Freud, is a way to analyze and find out that this girl is so attracted to mature men or wants to hang around them and do, because probably she was fixated at the phallic stage. It goes the same way for the please mute your microphone. For the boys too, is the Oedipus complex. At the phallic stage, the boy is attracted to the mother. Yes. Now, that attraction is a way to satisfy that need. That is of wanting to be with the mother. But if that need is not satisfied, he grows up having the urge, the desire to always come back to the mother, have a connection with the mother. You can call him mommy's boy, even after he is in the adult stage. He's a mommy's boy. Any decision, anything he wants to make, everything he comes back to discuss with mommy. He's a mommy boy because that pleasure probably was overly satisfied. He had too much satisfaction in the company of the mother, so he's fixated, or probably didn't even have the opportunity with the mother, so he's undersatisfied, which is still fixation. So according to Freud, successfully completing a stage is a stage where that need for that stage is well satisfied, so the person or the child is not fixated. Class, I believe we've gotten the understanding of the phallic stage. Thank you. Then we move to the fourth stage, the latency stage. What's the latency stage? It starts from 6 to 12 years. The main latency, something that is latent, it is dormant, it is not inactive, it is not awake, it is dormant. Latency is dormant, it's not awake, it's inactive. So at the latency stage, the pleasurable need is still in the genitals, all right, but it is dormant, it is calm, it is repressed, it has been somehow pushed down, it doesn't come to the consciousness. So according to Freud, the pleasurable need is still around the genitals, all right, but it is dormant, it is calm, it is inactive, it is not awakened. So the energy that should have been directed towards activities around the genitals so that the child gets pleasure is now directed to other areas. So from 6 to 12 years, the child is in latency stage. The pleasure should be centered around the genitals, but that pleasurable need is calmed. It has been made inactive. And so what does the child do with that energy? He focuses that energy into other activities. And so clearly in modern days now, such a child will be in school. And so that energy is directed towards schoolwork, towards playwork, towards anything but the genitals. So at the latency stage, the child develops interest in other activities, not concerning the genitals. Though the pleasurable need is in the genitals, it has been redirected to other activities. Okay. Still here too, there could be fixation at any stage, remember. Now the final stage, the genital stage. Now the name should tell you where the pleasurable need is. This time, the need is really in the genitals. And this is when the child is in adolescence. The child is now an adolescent. He or she is probably from 12 years and above. And at the genital stage, there is an awakening of this pleasurable need that was in the genitals at the latency stage. It has now been reawakened. It has been made active. It is no longer dormant. It is ready to work. And we know that at the adolescent stage, as these children are growing, the body is filled with a lot of hormones, and this pushes them to want to have the need to satisfy that genital pleasure. Class, am I making a point? And so within the genital stage, the pleasurable need is in the genital stage. It is no longer dormant as it was at the latency stage. And we all bear witness as adolescents, we see how they behave. In this our modern world, it has even become worse. They engage in love relationships and develop relationships all in the name of satisfying the pleasurable need that is in the genitals. Remember, a child can be fixated at this point. If the pleasurable need is overly satisfied, he or she is going to grow up into a person who will be so much enthused and so active when it comes to genital activities, maybe sex. If that child was undergratified, it means that he didn't get opportunity to do more of it during the genital stage, and so still will be fixated. So at any point in time, or any stage of the stages of personality development, according to Freud, there is a fixation. As Ella asked, is there a perfect personality? According to Freud, there could be a perfect personality if that personality is not fixated at any stage. All the needs at each of the stages were well satisfied. Class, any question? Okay, so I take it that we are okay with how we've seen Freud's understanding of personality developing through stages. So we start from the oral, go to the anal, come to the phallic, the latency, and eventually the genital stage. Remember that at each stage, there could be fixation. The fixation is about the pleasurable need. If it was overly satisfied or undersatisfied, the child will be fixated and definitely is going to grow to show behavior or signs that indicates that need that was either undersatisfied or overly satisfied. Okay. Yes, Jifa, your hand is up.
Yes, ma'am.
Jifa,
Please, can you please? Yes, ma'am. Please, can you hear me? Hello.
yes, I can hear you.
Yes. Can you please explain the latency stage for me again? I didn't get it well.
My colleagues, my dear students, can someone help Jifa understand the explanation of the latency stage? Anyone?
Okay, mother, please, I want to say something based on my understanding.
Go ahead.
Okay, so with regards to what you just explained to, we said that during that stage, the pleasurable need is around the genitals, but it's dormant, it's not active. And in this stage, because it's dormant, the child or the individual directs his or her interest into something else. So if the when we come to our school environment, the child can channel that kind of energy into sports or into maybe a drama or anything. So in this stage, the child or the individual, the pleasurable need is dormant, is inactive, which enables the individual to be able to um, divert his or her interest into something else that is not related to the genitals. Please, madam, please, I'm done.
Yes, you are on course, Ella, and thank you very much. So the explanation is as simple as you've given it. So latency, the pleasurable need is still on the genitals, just as it was at the phallic stage. Phallic stage, it was on the genitals, but it was directed towards opposite parent. In the latency stage, it is still on the genitals, but the energy or the satisfaction has been directed to other activities. So at that stage, children engage in any other activities apart from taking that energy to the genitals. Maybe because socially at that time, a child from 6 to 12 years, what business have you got to do with obtaining pleasure from the genitals? Okay. But once the child hits adolescence, the body itself, the hormones are already pushing it. So at the genital stage, clearly, the pleasurable need that was dormant, that was inactive, that was put to sleep at the latency stage is awakened because the body is ready. Hormones are pumping up. And so at that stage, maybe socially, the child can begin to engage in some of these relationships that is centered around the genitals. Okay. So we've seen how Freud is explaining personality development in terms of these 8 stages. And any behavior a person puts forth out of the person's personality, according to Freud, we can go back and analyze the stage from which that behavior we are seeing is coming from. Then we go to another psychoanalytic theory by Erik
Madam, please,
Erikson. His theory, yes,
I wanted to
he's
say
speaking.
something before Sister Jifa asked her question. Madam, please, can I go on? Hello.
Please go ahead.
Okay. So it means that um in our world where we find ourselves, people portray some personalities based on these stages. That is per my understanding, according to the lessons we have. It means that there are some behaviors that people portray based on from their infants. They started from their infants, and maybe their parents or their guardians around them thought that there was there was normal just because they didn't have the understanding of all these stages. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for adding that. So definitely there are some behaviors that children and even adults we put forth that are indicators of physician at a certain point of the personality development, according to Freud. Okay. But also note that according to Freud, a well-formed personality will not have any situation, will not have any behaviors that are questionable. But for Freud, if certain behaviors are questionable, then we can go back and trace it at which stage the person was fixated. I believe you should capture the understanding now. Thank you. So we look at another psychoanalytic theory, Erik Erikson. His theory is called psychosocial theory of personality development. Psychosocial. Freud's own was or is psychoanalytic. Erik Erikson's own is psychosocial. So here we are looking at two things, the mind and the social, the relationship we develop. It gives us a certain kind of personality that shows off in our behavior. The behavior we put forth as a result of psychosocial, how our mind and our relationship with other people influence the behavior we put forth. Okay, remember all these are looking at how the personality will develop. So I would have asked, what is your understanding of the term psychosocial? At least you can see two words here, psycho and then social. Now for Erik Erikson, can you hear me? Good. For Erik Erikson, there are 8 psychosocial stages. Each stage is characterized by a psychosocial conflict that should be resolved. Erik Erikson is also giving us stages of personality development, just as Freud gave us stages of personality development. But these two psychologists are looking at personality development from two different perspectives. Freud is basically looking at it from the mind, analyzing the psychology, the mind. Erik Erikson is looking at personality development from two things, psycho and social. Though these two theories are all explaining how personality develops, Freud basically focuses on mind, psychoanalytic. Erik Erikson is focusing on two things, how these two things, psycho and social, come together to influence our behavior. These two things have, these two theories, Freud and Erikson, what they have in common is that the theory they give, they are all in stages, but they have different focus. I hope you get me. Okay. So, according to Erik Erikson, each stage, just as Freud said that each stage has a need that must be satisfied, Erik Erikson is also saying that each stage has a psychosocial conflict that must be resolved. What is a psychosocial conflict? It is something that is centered on developing a psychological quality at a particular developmental stage. The psychosocial conflict is centered on developing a particular psychological quality, a certain attribute, a certain character. So each stage has a certain character or psychological attributes that the person must develop. when the person is at that stage. Otherwise, if the person does not develop that stage, the person will have to later one day resolve that, solve that quality, get that quality he missed at that stage. So let's start and then you'll get what Eric is saying. So the 8 stages for Eric Erickson, if you have your course manual, you can turn and you will see that he gave 8 stages. The first stage is the infancy stage, starting from birth to about 1.5 years. And we know that when children are born, they are helpless. They solely and entirely depend on their caregiver to survive. When a baby is born, he or she is helpless. He cannot feed himself, can't clothe himself, can't comfort himself. Basically, that child is dependent on the caregiver. The caregiver could be anybody, the parent or any adult that should offer care to this child. Now, at that stage, the psychosocial conflict, the infancy stage, that the conflict that the child must resolve is trust versus mistrust. So the first stage of Eric Erickson's psychosocial personality development is trust versus mistrust. It means that when a child from 0 to 1.5 years, either he has trust in the world he has come to or will not develop trust in the world he has come to, all dependent on the care he or she receives. So the care a baby receives will make the child either have trust or not trust anybody in the world he has come to. So Eric is saying that the first stage of personality development is trust versus mistrust. It's either you develop one of these two, either the child gain trust or will not trust. How will this happen? It depends on the care the child receives. If a baby is born into a home environment where he receives adequate and sufficient care, definitely this child is going to trust that people can be trusted. Because as an infant, when he cries, he or she is picked up, he is comforted, he's given food. When he's wet, he is changed. I mean, any need at infancy, the moment the child shows signs of that need, he receives care. So the child has hope that even if there is something challenging, he can trust the people to help resolve it. Let's look at it on the other way. A baby born into an environment where nobody seems to care. This child can cry from morning to whatever and will not be fed, will not be given food, will not be comforted, will not be held. How is this child going to have trust? So this child grows out of the first stage knowing not to trust. So the first stage of personality development, according to Eric Erickson, is either you develop trust or mistrust, all dependent on the care the baby receives. The first stage, which is known as trust versus mistrust, occurs from birth to about 1 year. And so a baby at that time, if he's receiving all the attention, all the care, all the love, he's going to develop trust and have hope in people. The second stage, class, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
The second stage, according to Eric Erickson, is autonomy versus shame and doubt. Autonomy versus shame and doubt. Autonomy here is referring to self. So, after the first stage, which is trust and mistrust, where the first stage, which is trust versus mistrust, the child moves into the second stage, which according to Erickson is called autonomy versus shame and doubt. And at this second stage, the child is between 1.5 getting to 3 years. Okay. And children at this stage, they may want to begin to do things for themselves, even though they cannot do it well. If you have a child at this stage, getting to 3 years, 2.5 years, at this stage, if it is about feeding, he wants to try to eat himself. If it's about doing any activity that you used to do for him when he was infant, he wants to try to do it himself. That is the autonomy, wanting to do things himself. Yes, Eunice is saying dressing up. Sure, he wants to try to dress up the way you've been dressing him up. He wants to try and wear the shoe himself. He wants to try and wear the shirt himself. He wants to try and tie the shoelace himself. He wants to do something for the self, autonomy, self. Now, if this child is in a home environment where that self behavior the child wants to do is supported, is promoted, is encouraged, he is going to have the will to always do things for himself. So, though mommy is running late for church or work, he could allow Kofi, who is between 2.5 years, to want to wear his own shirt or want to wear his own shoe. Though he will not wear it right, he wants to do it for himself. It is guidance at that time. Do not automatically shut the boy down. Stop it, you can't do it. Then you can't do it. If you do that, the child will be doubting himself. He will develop shame. The second stage, it is either the child become autonomous, become self, he depends on himself to do certain things, though not perfect, or he doubts his abilities and becomes shameful. So it is again how we receive and nurture that conflict the child wants to resolve. The child wants to know that he should be able to do it himself. But the environment, the caregivers, the parents, or whoever is caring for the child should allow, but not totally shut the child down. If you do that, shame and doubt, the child will not have the will to do anything for him or herself. Because, of course, the moment he starts, he will be shut down. So he doubts his own abilities. He doubts his own capabilities. If this person is going to grow up to be an adult in a workplace, is he going to start anything at all by himself? No. He is going to doubt himself. These things we are discussing eventually have effects, even when the person is old. That is why it is a psychoanalytic theory. So the environment and the influence it has eventually shapes the behavior we put forth and how we develop. So combining these first two levels or these two stages, trust versus mistrust, a child who has developed the positive quality here, which is trust, will have hope that even when she grows up, she has hope that even when things are bad, even when challenges come, there would be a solution because he came from an infancy level where her needs were met. If this same girl developed trust when she was an infant and entered into the second stage, which is autonomy versus shame and doubt, and at that stage, she was given the room to explore, to begin to do things for herself, though not perfect, she developed the will to be herself, do things for herself. So even when she grows up, she will start something. She has the will to start something, to do something, believe in her abilities, because she came from that environment that supported her. On the opposite side, a child who came from the first level of mistrust, he doubts everybody. because as a child, nobody stood up to care for. So that mistrust is there. And if that quality is not resolved and she goes into the second stage of autonomy versus shame and doubt, and at that second level too, there was no support. Everything he starts to do, you were shut down, you can't do it, stop it. He doubts his own skills and so wouldn't have the will to begin anything at all. Imagine a person growing and developing some qualities that are always on the bad side of the 8 stages of the development you are going to look at. Then according to Erickson, the personality of such a person, I don't know how to describe such a person, but a person who has grown by developing the positive qualities of each of the stages, that will be a person with a wonderful personality. So these are the theories that are explaining how development occurs. I think our time is fast approaching, and so we'll look at the third level, which is initiative versus guilt. Initiative versus guilt. And at this third stage, the child may be between 3 to 5 years. Initiative versus guilt. Let me share a story that is a real story. A friend in the house, and the friend has a girl who was within this age. Now, the girl has a bicycle. That she rides in the house. And this was so she has a pepper to clean the dirty bicycle. The baby wipes that the mother used. And he brought the baby wipes and he removed one after the other to clean the dirty bicycle. Initiative versus guilt. That is the stage this girl is in. She is starting. Initiative means to start, to begin something. She has a purpose. The bicycle is dirty. That's the purpose. She wants to clean it up. So she starts to do something. But maybe she didn't do it the right way. She used baby wipers to clean it. The mother at this stage has a big role. Upon seeing the girl cleaning the dirty bicycle with the baby wipes, what will she do if you are a mother? Then the Ghanaian mother, you know immediately what follows. It will be beatings, it will be insults, and all the bad things. Once the mother does that, this child feels guilty for even trying to clean that dirty bicycle. So at the third stage, initiative versus guilt. If whatever the child starts, the purpose of the child cleaning the dirty bicycle, she starts to do it. That's the initiative. The response of the caregiver, that is the social part here, the response of whoever is around will determine whether that initiative skill is promoted or the child experiences guilt. If she punishes the girl for that, this child experiences guilt. And whenever she has a purpose, whenever there is something she wants to do, she sits back and says, this, that. And then that sense of purpose is killed. Class, do you get me? Okay. So that is the third level, initiative versus guilt. So if you look at Erickson, the conflict is between a positive character and a negative character. The child can develop the positive quality or the negative quality. It depends on the social, the environment. That is why the theory is psychosocial. The psycho is that character, that quality that the child has to develop. The social is the environment within which that quality may or may not develop. I believe you understand me. Thank you. So let's move to the fourth one. And this is early childhood. So we will cut it off at the fourth stage. Because early childhood, the child would grow, and before it gets to adolescence, that is the time we are looking at it as childhood. So we will not go beyond the childhood. but if we were studying another course, that is adolescent development, we would have continued to see the rest of the stages that talks about after childhood. But since this course is restricted to childhood, we will only discuss up to the fourth stage. So the fourth stage here is industry versus inferiority. Industry versus inferiority. Industry here is not referring to industries as we know, but industry here is referring to the word work, to do something, to work. So at this stage, the child is between 5 to 12 years. That is the stage, industry versus inferiority. At that stage, Eric Erickson is saying that two things can happen in terms of the quality the child can develop. Either the child become an industrious child or feels inferior in terms to a particular activity. So Eric Erickson is saying that at the first stage, children want to be competent in certain work that they want to do. They want to be competent in it. They want to feel capable of doing that. And so they may become industrious. If the environment, if the social environment in which this child is in doesn't promote that, he may feel inferior. So, for example, for this age from 5 to 12 years, this child wants to learn how to do something. If it's a girl, that is when she wants to learn how to do some cooking or any activity in the house. If it's a boy, she has the desire maybe to play football. So all the time he goes out with his ball after school on the park playing. Before he comes home, it is late in the evening, all dirty and sweaty. It is this stage that this boy wants to prove competent in a certain task. He wants to prove himself and know how to play the football. But if you always come back home to an environment that is not supporting this industry, it's not supporting this work, psychologically, he may be brought down. The comments that people may pass, boy, I will be crying from I mean, those negative comments would make the child feel inferior in that. So Eric Erickson's stages of personality development is really teaching us that in order for children to develop the positive qualities in the stages, the environment, the social part has a big role to play. It is the support that they get, it is the encouragement that they get, so that they will not feel and develop that negative qualities of each stage. So class, at this point, this is where we will cut off Eric Erickson's 8 psychosocial stages. We've discussed the first 4 because this course pertains to childhood. After the 4th, we are entering into adolescence, and that's not the focus of child development and learning. So the first stage is trust versus mistrust. Second stage is autonomy versus shame and doubt. Third stage is initiative versus guilt. The 4th stage is industry versus inferiority. I urge you to read your course manual and read more online too, so you will better understand how, according to Eric Erickson, the personality of children develop. Okay. So this is ending of session 2. Ending of session 2. By now we should be finishing unit 1 thereabouts, but I hope we'll be catching up in due time. Any comments, questions, anything? The floor is open.
Hello, madam.
Yes.
Hello.
Madam, please, when are we supposed to complete the Unit 1, Session 6?
So ideally, sorry, if you look at the calendar, I think the calendar should be out. Sorry. With 2 meetings, we should be able to finish a particular unit. 2 meetings, we should be able to finish a particular unit. So I urge you to read ahead. Yes, read ahead, and I hope you also can, even maybe during the course of the week, if we can have an hour session, we can do that. Though the university may not pay me for that,
yes,
we can still use it to cover up. Though the university may not pay me for that,
yes,
we can still use to cover up.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
That would be nice.
We are just okay. So session 3, and it's 125. Remember, for unit 1, we are looking at theories of development. So the first theories we looked at were theories from the behaviorist point of view, how behavior developed. And we saw Pavlov's work, we saw Skinner's work, and they explain how behavior develops. Then session 2, we've seen how personality can also develop. And the personality theories, we've seen Freud's 3 components personality, the id, ego, superego. Again, we saw Freud's stages of personality development, the 5 stages, the oral, the anal, the phallic, the latency, and the genital stage. And then on personality also, we've seen Erik Erikson 8 stages, of which we've discussed the first 4. So for the personality theories, we talked about them as psychoanalytic because they are analyzing some issues. Now, session 3 is focusing on how children develop cognitively. Cognitive is their thinking. How do children thinking develops? So session 3 is focusing on cognitive developmental theories. Cognitive developmental theories. And there are a number of theories that explain how children thinking develops. The popular one is Piaget. Most students will pronounce it as Piaget because it is spelled Piaget, but it is a French name, so it is pronounced Piaget. So Piaget gave us some theories to explain how the thinking of children develop as they grow. Now, his theory is in stages, so we will look at that. Then there are other theories on cognition we will also study. But unfortunately, our time is up. And I don't want to start somewhere and we'll have to end it and then come back another time. So let's read ahead and let's see if we can find 1 hour somewhere within the week that we can catch up on unit 1. So if you are not on our WhatsApp page, please click on the link that Jifa shared today and join us on the WhatsApp page so that you will be informed as to when we are likely to have any meeting during the week before we meet again on Saturdays. Okay, so I want to end here and then we will meet later on the online platform. On the WhatsApp page also, we have shared the model. Those who are joining us again, we will share the model again for your benefit and then add maybe the PowerPoints that would also simplify issues for you. In the meantime, I think we can end here so you can prepare for your next class. If there are any suggestions or any questions, let's hear. If not, it's bye-bye. So we meet again. Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye.
Please, the link has been shared again, so you can join the WhatsApp group. Thank you.
Hello, Jifa. Jifa.
Hello. Yes, please.
Please, are you the course rep?
Let's say so, because I'm the
Okay.
one controlling the page now.
Okay. Okay. So it means for child development and learning, you're supposed to use 2 weeks to cover unit 1, right?
2 weeks to cover unit 1.
Section 6, or because I know the book is not the course book we are using is not that much. So I think we are going to take it in bits, right?
That depends on the lecturer.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So please join the page. Any question you can put it there. She's on the page too, so she'll
Okay.
answer all the
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Hello.
Hello.
Please, how are we going to join the page?
The link is I've just posted the link here. So go to where you type your message, you see the link.
Oh, okay, okay, all right. Thank you.